Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you to this year's annual conference for Innovations Against Poverty. We're delighted to have it here in Lusaka this year in Zambia. We were in Stockholm the first time when we did it a year ago, and it's a great pleasure for us all to be here and hosted by the Swedish Embassy and by the local entity of IAP here in Zambia. We have a very full schedule, as you've seen in the program. And we are encouraging you very much to participate and to be engaged. We are filming this event so that you will be able to view it online afterwards as well. And will be streamed live, so we will have participants also contributing while we do the conference during the day with comments and questions, etc. But for this reason, it is very important that we try to be back on time, try to be seated, etc. So you could all help us very much by, when you go in and out in the breaks, come back from exhibition. And remember, there's plenty of time to see the exhibition because it's open in every break. And so it would be therefore very helpful if you try to be back on time. So we have the streaming live throughout the day, and all panel welcome your questions as well. Every session and presentation has a question and answer. So when you do have questions, we will have microphones, this one and one more, to come around to get your questions. And so I would like the IAP team to stand up so we can just see who you are, if you have questions, and then these people will be guiding you throughout the day as well. You will meet us all in the different sessions in the panels. There is a Wi-Fi here as well in the hall in all the different areas, so you are also welcome to comment or to send anything, post anything on Twitter, or you can connect with us at Inclusive Business on Twitter. Well, without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Jenny Åkerbäck from Sida to open officially the conference.
There we see. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you. I'm very happy to see that so many had made it to Lusaka to take part of the second annual conference of Innovation Against Poverty. We have a full day to look forward to, and I would like to start off with thanking PwC and the Innovation Against Poverty team here that have planned this day. The Swedish International Development Agency started the program Business for Development in 2010, which is the program we today call Private Sector Collaboration. The objective was to leverage the contribution of the private sector to global poverty reduction and to promote inclusive and sustainable business models that enable people living in poverty to improve the quality of their lives. Sida has since then developed different methods and tools to collaborate with the private sector. Thus, it's important to work both with larger companies and smaller companies, entrepreneurs, innovators, and also with NGOs, influencing companies to work in a better way. When Sida started the program Innovation Against Poverty in 2011, we had realized that there was a gap in the market when it came to entrepreneurs and inclusive business. Inclusive business was lacking technical expertise and financial resources when they most needed it in the early stage of the business. So there were in the early stage of the business, and there were no room to develop and try new ideas and concepts. Sida designed a risk-sharing mechanism to catalyze inclusive business models by providing early-stage funding to ventures that develop new products, services, and business models with potential to reduce poverty. We are now in the third and final year of the pilot project, and we have started to see results. I'm happy and very proud to say that we have provided funding to 65 companies in over 30 countries, and most of them are doing well. Lena and her team will tell us more about that in a little bit. But I'm very pleased to hear that 2/3 of the grantees said that their inclusive business is better designed, proceeding more quickly, or are bigger than it would have been without the funding. 1/3 said that the project would not have progressed at all without the funding. As many of you may be aware of, this is the final year of the pilot. Innovation against poverty plays an important role in moving entrepreneurs from early stage into effective business models in practice, and Sida would like to continue this support. Sida's aim was to have a second phase up and running already in the beginning of 2014, but unfortunately this will not be possible. We will take with us the learning from the pilot phase, and we are hoping to present an even better program in the second half of 2014. Today we will meet a few of the companies that have received support from Sida, and they will share their experience with us. How do they innovate and adapt their business models? What do they do when things do not go as planned? We will also get a deeper understanding of the base of the pyramid and get a masterclass on how to become investor ready. By the end of the day, we will learn who the Innovator of the Year is, and then we will round off with a cocktail reception at the Ambassador's residence. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you, and I hope that you will take active part in today's session to make it as valuable as possible for all of us. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Lena Eriksson. I'm the team leader for the IAP team at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We're a team of about 22 heads, not everyone working full-time, but so it's a highly engaged team that has been involved in this. Together with our knowledge exchange manager, Suzanne Dagseven, I'll be presenting some more details about the Innovation Against Poverty program and some of the sort of first learnings that we're drawing from the portfolio. Just quickly run through the program. For those of you who don't know the program very well, there's a short presentation of what IAP is all about. I'll present the IAP portfolio in a little bit more detail, and then Suzanne will take over and look at some of the achievements to date from the operational IAP grantees and the learnings that we're drawing from them. As Jenny was saying, this is was a Sida program that was started in 2011, and we're in the very last few weeks of this pilot. The initial target that we were set by Sida was to try and find 60 suitable projects, and they had 2.6 million euros available for that. The logic behind IAP is that, you know, there is a company, there are lots of good ideas out there, and but to get anywhere with those ideas, you need to test them. Even in a developed world, in the developed countries, risks associated with startups makes an effective block to get anyone to get funding or to get support in any form. And if you add to that the challenge of what the inclusive business is trying to reach, which is the poorest of the poor and the base of the pyramid, clearly there is need for support to get past the first barriers, get to a stage where you can actually prove your concept and prove your ideas and show that this is actually working on the ground. And also in terms of sharing, drawing lessons, learning, as we said, you know, we're here and we're drawing out the lessons from the program, sharing this through different medium, this conference, different reports, a hub that we have on the internet, etc., to further enhance other people who are thinking about starting these kinds of businesses. And then they can move more quickly up the learning curve. We For an IAP-funded project needs to have a clear development impact. It needs to be innovative. It's innovations against poverty in some respect. Not necessarily an invention, but innovation in very often in the business model. And we put a lot of emphasis on the likelihood of commercial viability in the medium to long term, to make sure that it's a sustainable, it's not going to be sort of indeterminately grant funded. To get promoter buy-in, we also have a quite strong cost-sharing element. You have to be able to provide 50% of the cost yourself in one form or another. And we want to make sure that Sida funding is actually additional, that it makes a difference, that it's not... For example, if we have some larger companies that have been funded, there has to be a very clear element of we wouldn't do this in this direction or in this market otherwise. IAP has small grants that typically have gone to refining concepts and sort of initial pilots, market studies, these kinds of things, and larger grants that are more aimed at, you know, there's an element of testing already done. We now want a big pilot, or we want to implement, or we want to ramp up these ideas. And as I was saying, the IAP program is not just a typical challenge fund would be the sort of left bit here, the financial assistance. In this team, we also do a bit of advisory support and even more importantly, sort of the monitoring, evaluation and knowledge exchange work, which is sort of has been the focus of this last year, where we're drawing out lessons and we're trying to put them out in the public space. Because grant money being used, we need to make sure that there is a public good, and the public good here is one of the elements is that we're putting the learnings from various companies into the public space for others to use. After 30 months, as I said, we had a target of 60 projects. We actually had 69 approved, 3 have been cancelled after approval. So we have 66 projects in the portfolio to the tune of 5.5 million euros, so more than twice the size. Projects are implemented throughout on 3 continents. We even got Latin America in and the Caribbean in this last cycle. So we had to expand our map. The sectors, a lot of course is in agriculture and food and renewable energy. But also a number of health initiatives. We have some people in some projects implementing finance initiatives, etc. And water and sanitation waste management are the largest ones. We try to look at it slightly differently because this is the type of, we see that innovation happens in the overlap of sectors. The previous was, you know, if you have to tell us which sector you're in, you'll tell us 1 or 2. But this shows more what IAP is about. It's about finding different ways of combining technologies, combining knowledge, and using that to actually be able to do a very, very difficult thing, which is to on a commercial footing address a need at the BOP market. Some of you might not feel that you're correctly represented, but it's sort of showing, and also the internet and mobile technology, the enabling sort of platform that provides. Oh, there it came. At baseline, the projects that we funded were very much sort of early stage, concept development, scoping, design, piloting. And one year we did a survey where we asked all the companies that have been operational for a while to tell us where they were. And 1 year into the program, there is a clear shift to the right. There's much more of implementation and larger piloting and scaling up going on. We have still a very heavy focus on consumers, because that gives a good development effect. But quite a lot also on distributors and entrepreneurs and producers. And I think Sida is very happy with the fact that there is quite a big focus on women beneficiaries, where if you look at whether women are the majority or more, it's almost half of the respondents who are now in operation and still, if you add around half, then it's 2/3 of the women that are the main beneficiaries. So this was very briefly about the program and the way where it stands today.
Thanks, Lena. As Lena mentioned, my role is knowledge exchange with the Innovations Against Poverty program. So one of the things I'll be talking about is some of the achievements we've seen to date from these 29 grantees that responded to our progress update in June this year. So it's been very interesting actually to look at the journeys that these grantees have made and see what results are starting to emerge. I have to say it's still very early days, so we're really looking at where they were from the beginning before they received any IAP grant funding and where they were 1 year later. So still very early days, but we are starting to see some interesting results emerging. And one of the key questions that we do ask in the IAP program is whether or not our grantees are thriving, which means are they heading towards becoming commercially viable and having a profitable business model. When we ask the grantees themselves whether they're thriving or not, most of them, that is 26 of the 29, said that they are on track and continuing to make progress, which is an excellent result, I think, after 1 year, and particularly compared to results typically in this field, it's quite good. And of course, two projects we're pleased to say have already broken even. Again, that's quite good within 1 year to have actually reached a point where your income is greater than your costs. And a third, having said that, I guess, only a third expect to have reached break even in year 4. So it is actually a very long journey, I guess, to reaching profitability for a lot of these companies. So while there are really good results to date, we shouldn't become too positive. This is a long journey and we do need to be realistic about when we can start to see profitability across the board. The diagram here about turnover is illustrative to really show, based on our results, the kind of trajectories that these companies are on. I think one thing I should point out is many of them start at zero because, as Lena pointed out, these are very early stage projects. They're just starting to get their ideas off the ground, so most of them start with a nil turnover. And where they're doing very early stage market research, a year later they're often still at nil turnover, which is fine. But then again, most of them are on a clear upward trajectory. Some of them quite significantly, but certainly all of them making some very good progress there. So I think we can say that in the whole, our grantees are thriving. In terms of their reach to the base of the pyramid, of course, we're not just funding businesses here, we actually are funding businesses that make a difference for poor people living in rural or remote areas who don't have access to goods or services. So it's really important for us to, of course, be able to track what impact is this having on the base of the pyramid. And again, I think we're starting from a low base, so again, I add a bit of caution to the numbers, but within 1 year, only 13 of our grantees show that they've had a 36-fold increase in the number of consumers that they've reached. So that was, again, starting from quite a low base. It was around 1,000 consumers that were being reached when they first started to receive IAP grant funding, and now a year later, they're up at around 36,000 consumers. So it's actually quite a big jump to make in 1 year. And I think if we try and fast track that forward, at first it can seem like predictions that companies make are very optimistic. You know, we see numbers like 200,000 will be reached in the second year. It can seem very much. But actually, when you look at how well they're doing at the moment, it could be realistic. We also, as Lena mentioned, the companies not only reach the base of the pyramid as consumers, but also engage them in their supply chains as producers and suppliers. And again, just 7 of our grantees where we had data available have shown a 32% increase in 1 year, which is quite good. And lastly, the other way that our companies engage base of the pyramid is through as distributors or entrepreneurs that often sell goods and services in communities on behalf of that organisation. And there's been a 9-fold increase in those numbers. Again, from a very, very low base, I think it was probably around 10 that were reported by those 7 companies a year ago, but now over 80. So in terms of a trajectory and relative increase, it's quite a lot, although from that low base. To give a bit more of a comprehensive view about commercial viability and development impact, the IAP team actually has developed indices that take a number of different indicators about commercial viability and about development impact, such as, you know, how many people have they reached so far, is there a good management team in place, is there a business plan, and so on. So it's quite a comprehensive view of the success factors commercially and developmentally. But what we can actually do with that is map then companies about how well are they likely to have a strong development impact here on the side, and then the commercial viability along the bottom. And I think this is quite interesting because, again, Innovations Against Poverty is about stimulating business that helps reach the base of the pyramid. So I think that we can see that there's not a trade-off here. Most companies are actually able to do both. And I'm not sure how well you can see, the squares are actually our large grants. And I think it makes sense that they're probably a bit more on the high scale because they, as initiatives, are more developed than the small grants, which are the triangles. They're much more early stage, and so it's a little bit hard for us to judge at this point how well will they look in 5 years' time. It's still a little bit early. But in general, I think we can say that our initiatives are able to deliver both development impact and see signs of future commercial viability as well. So what can we learn from the journey of IAP grantees? This is a big question that I work with in Knowledge Exchange. What can we actually draw out from these journeys that can help other companies who are setting off down this trail? What can other entrepreneurs learn from those who have come before? So evaluation and learning is a big part of what we do. And one of the key ways we do that, or 2 key ways that we do it, one is to have annual conferences like we have here today, and the other is to produce annual reports about the Innovations Against Poverty program. So just to draw your attention, of course, to the fact that you have received a pack today. Within that we have this year's Knowledge Exchange report, which we're actually launching today here at the annual conference. So you've received the first hard copies of these today, and it will be available on our Practitioner Hub, which you have the web address there. The Practitioner Hub for Inclusive Business was started by Innovations Against Poverty and a sister program run by the UK Department for International Development as a resource for entrepreneurs who are actually working with inclusive business. And for those of you who have not visited that website yet, I really encourage you to do that. There's a lot of information there about everything from finding good partners to developing distribution systems or even finding finance. We do have a database up there of over 200 sources of finance for inclusive business. So for every entrepreneur in the room, I really, really encourage you to visit that website. But yeah, as mentioned, one of the key resources that will be up there from today is our 2013 Knowledge Exchange report. This covered off on a number of themes, and I'll run through some of those key learnings now, but you'll see that these themes are also reflected in the agenda for the conference today, because these are what we feel is the most relevant lessons that we would want to talk to companies about. So the first one of those is around things rarely going to plan. And when we looked at the journey of our 29 grantees over the past year, this was definitely the most key theme that came through from all the companies. That is, the best laid plans will always go unexpectedly. The reasons for that are very multied. They can be anything from the wrong equipment was delivered or our CEO left, to when we actually took our product into the market, it turned out to be more expensive, and it turns out that people at the base of the pyramid can't afford it. We need to go back to the drawing board, or we need to focus on a different market segment. So there's lots of different reasons for this, but it's definitely consistent. And I think some of the key messages, of course, as an entrepreneur, is that patience, persistence, and resilience are really the key to success here. When we ask IAP grantees, what's the one key thing you would tell another entrepreneur, they always say, don't give up. So it's clear to see why. And I think also from Sida's side and for the perspective of other funders and supporters of these businesses, that they really need to be flexible in the way that they administer these programs. Often there's a desire to have a clear activity plan and a budget that really shows what the money will be used for, and that's very good for transparency. But on the other hand, as a company that's trying to adapt quickly to changes in the market, it can become quite a challenge. So one of the key lessons is, of course, that donors need to be as responsive as the companies themselves and find some good ways around those procedures that are normally in place. In terms of how they deliver their initiatives, it really became clear how important it is to test ideas early and often in the market. Lena pointed out that it's often this very early stage research that IAP funds. Particularly our small grants are doing very early stage market research. People just want to understand what is the potential for this idea that we have. And then the large grants are maybe a little bit further, but still quite early stage in terms of developing prototypes, getting user feedback, seeing what actually works out in the field. And it's been very interesting to see the results that that has had for these companies. We've had some companies find out, for example, once they do that further research, that actually their idea isn't as feasible as they first thought, and they have needed to redesign it or refocus it quite early. And I think there's a lot of value for realising that very early on in the stage, rather than investing more time and money into something that ultimately doesn't have a lot of potential viability to it. So I think the importance of testing these ideas early has become quite evident through the IAP program. Companies also need to build consumer demand, and this is quite interesting because working in the base of the pyramid, there's often not a lot of information about what products and services are out there, and consumers often need a lot of help to understand why should they buy from this company or not. And I think there's 4 key things that came out when we looked at the experience of IAP grantees in this. The first is that building trust is essential when working at the base of the pyramid. People don't have a lot of money, and they want to make sure that what they do spend on their money on is going to deliver what it promises, and that there's not going to be any problems down the track. So building trust is really essential. Dignity is another very interesting theme that had come out, and I think this is about how one builds a brand and also how one engages with the base of the pyramid, whether it's as producers or distributors or as customers, and that is to treat them with dignity and respect. And I think traditionally in development, there's not been that same approach that one can have in business, where you see them, where you work with people in the base of the pyramid as equals and, build dignity into the way you do business. Aspiration is another key factor that emerged from that, the importance of building role models or showing the social status that can come of buying products and services in the market. And lastly, and not surprisingly, affordability is critical when working in these markets. And I think the final lesson that I'll just highlight is about finding the right distribution model. This is really a challenge. These markets are not very well connected to electricity grids, to transport infrastructure, to communications networks. And how do you actually reach these customers with what it is that you're trying to sell? This is a big challenge for many companies that receive funding through the Innovations Against Poverty program, and they've all trialled different distribution models with various degrees of success. And I think it's not about what succeeds or not, it's actually about what lessons can we learn from what they have trialled. And this is something we really tried to draw out in the Knowledge Exchange report. So that's a brief summary of some of the lessons, but I do encourage you to pick up the Knowledge Exchange report, have a read through, and definitely do visit the Practitioner Hub for Inclusive Business. There's a lot of great resources up there. Thank you.
Okay, so summing up, I think we can safely say that IAP has actually been a success compared to what was expected when the pilot was started. Not only in terms of the numbers, but also in identifying interesting, scalable, replicable models for BOP, goods and services. And the IAP grantees that are in the room are clearly, you are all members of this group of very interesting companies that we have been supported. as we've seen, the growing numbers of beneficiaries and turnover, despite the fact that we're really still very early days. I think out of the projects that reported back to us this summer, there was 1 or 2 that had been 2 years of operation. Everyone else had basically maximum a year of operation. So they are headed towards sort of financial sustainability and in some cases even profitability. There's a strong growth there. And as we're saying, we have some important learnings that we now can then both Sida can build into the next program, which we all are looking forward to, and and also for us to share with other practitioners. And that's what this day is about. I just also wanted to say that in this program, or in this folder, you have a little memory stick here. I don't want people to lose that one or not notice it, because that has actually all the information that you have in this pack and in the project profiles that are also on your chairs. It has some more information from the Inclusive Business Hub. So take that one and look at it. And it still has some space for other things as well. So questions?
Could you clarify when you said, okay, the pilot project is coming to an end, and then it was only later in 2014 that there would be, I didn't quite follow what that was referring to.
Well, the IAP program that we're working on was a pilot that Sida set up to test if it would be feasible to actually fund innovative entrepreneurs who wanted to address the BOP market. But that was a 3-year pilot, started early 2011 and is ending now in December. So we have actually had our last funding cycle that just was finalized in October. And as Jenny was saying, Sida are keen to continue with a program such as IAP, but it's not there yet. Maybe you want to...
We need to evaluate the program that we're running now and see how the next program should be set up. And ideally, that should have been done so we had the second program starting in January, but that has not materialized. So what happened is that, the program or the projects that are running will continue to run, but we will not have any new funding cycles until we have set up the next program. Thanks.
Any more questions? There's one over there.
Hi, Kate Montgomery with d.light. Just to follow on to that question, in the next phase or potentially in another type of program, are you thinking of any follow-on with your current grantees, potentially phase 2, phase 3 to help them grow from kind of startup and on?
We haven't come that far in the planning yet, but that's something that I should take with me. Thanks.
Any other questions? There's one in the back.
Good morning, Kapumpem Sakanya from You're Changing Lives. It's more of a statement and a contribution. I'm glad to see that you took note of certain key points, which is affordability and dignity. I don't think those two elements in projects and business can be understated, and the value that the market actually has and attaches to that. And I think those are key issues for certain success. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions, I hand over back to the moderator. Thank you.
We say welcome for those of you who might connected online as well. We are streaming live today from the Innovations Against Poverty Annual Conference and Awards in Lusaka. So you can follow us all day, you can dip in and out, but the conference is also available online and archived afterwards. We will have the next session about innovating and adapting business models. So I welcome Niklas Herrmann and the team of Nuru Energy, d.light, EcoFuel, and Zanrec. You can all have a seat, so we're going to change the seats front.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Niklas Herrmann. I'm a part of the IAP team working out of Stockholm. I will be moderating this session, which looks at innovating and adapting business models. We will try and identify some key factors by which organizations adapt and adjust their business models to be successful in their respective markets. Because developing products or services for the BOP has many challenges. Not only must the services and products on offer be attractive and affordable, but the business model must work. The delivery, the financing, and organization must be geared to the specific product or service, and it is a challenge for many companies to get this right from the start. Instead, we have seen that the success and survival of many companies supported by the IAP depends on their ability to adapt their business models, their products and services, to the realities of the target market and consumer demand. Companies supported by the IAP have put in a great deal of research and effort into understanding the markets, the value chains, the customers, and the socioeconomic conditions. But when they put their ideas into practice, the circumstances can be quite different. Ideas must be tested in the market early and often before the right method is found, and sometimes business models change substantially as companies are forced to rethink their approach and seek new entry points. It can be the case that services and products on offer may have to be modified to the realities of the market, the value chain, or local regulations. Zanrec from Zanzibar, for example, have had to adapt their business model, originally geared to selling post-consumer plastics and paper, to providing collection services of solid waste. Or business models may need to be adjusted as markets expand and new opportunities appear. EcoFuel from Uganda continue to broaden their model and expand their business, increasing value to all actors along the production chain, and are now looking into scaling up their operations through a franchising model. Or a business model, products and services may work in one geographic area, but not in another. Nuru Energy found that their distribution model, engaging village entrepreneurs for their products, which had been highly effective in East African markets, was not equally viable when applied to the Indian context. In this session, companies will share their experience from adapting their business models, products and services in response to an often unfamiliar and sometimes complicated market. With us today, we have representatives from 4 companies that have received IAP support. We have Tim Berwoon from Zanrec, a company that has developed a locally adapted waste management system on the island of Zanzibar. We have Mr. Sanga Moses from EcoFuel Africa, a company that produces and distributes charcoal made from agricultural bio-waste in Uganda. And we have Samir Haji from Nuru Energy, a company that seeks to manufacture and distribute portable lights and recharging technology to rural households in India. And we have Kate Montgomery from d.light, a global company that has received IAP support to sell off-grid portable lighting solutions to low-income households in Uganda. We will have about 10 minutes for each presentation, including questions and answers at the end of that. So, Tim, I understand that your global business model, or your original business model and services, had to change due to a number of setbacks and delays. But you were persistent, and that has paid off. Please tell us some more about that. You can come up here, Tim, if you want.
This isn't the start of my presentation, just talking the questions. There we go. Right, that's me. Hi. If I speak too fast, please let me know. I have a tendency to do that, and in the interest of brevity, I'll also not speak too slow. My name's Tim Wolven. I'm the project manager for Zanrec. We are a waste management and recycling company on Zanzibar. Now, a few years ago, in around 2007, we had an individual with an idea to take plastic material, which is what most of this is here, and turn it into a valuable resource by doing some pre-processing, some value addition, and then selling it to markets in India and China where most of the production is done. This idea was taken, it was developed, and it was brought forward into this hasn't fitted on, but into a business plan, and essentially it's trash for cash, rubbish to riches, and I couldn't think of anything for waste, so I put wonga, which is a very strange British term for money. But it wasn't as easy as all that. Upon kind of arriving and trying to start up the business, we hit across some problems. The government wasn't quite ready to commit and to give us the go-ahead for building a plant. They weren't in a situation to make a decision, and I won't go into too much details about that. In actual fact, the materials that we were looking for had a reuse value. So people were taking the plastic bottles, they were taking them directly from the hotels, using them for oil, juice, milk, and so it was hard to capture the materials from hotels. And what I will go back to, Zanzibar is a very, very tourist-driven island. 70% of its economy comes from tourism. It's a paradisical location, honeymoons, very high-end hotels. So we went in to capture all the plastics from drinking bottles and to take that material and refine it, take it out of the environment and make it more valuable. But whilst we were there, whilst we were trying to get along with all these difficulties with the government and the material, we started integrating ourselves into the community, making sure that people knew what we were doing. We worked with school children to collect plastic. We do beach cleanups. We have agents in rural villages collecting plastics that we buy from them. And also advertising, so people get to know who we are. It's very important also for our local employees, we found, that they work for someone that is recognized, that it's a famous company. And this integration led us to kind of look at what we were doing, and we were very fortunate enough to get funding from Sida for impact investment, and also from a social impact investment company called Rylander. And while we were building ourselves into the community, we realized that value addition was just going to become too expensive and not economically feasible. So whilst we were out speaking to the hotels, we'd set up pilots, we were collecting plastics, we were working with schools, working with other NGOs. I got to speak to about 100 hotel managers, and they're all feeling very, very guilty because there is no waste solution on Zanzibar. There's nowhere to put their rubbish. They kind of turn a blind eye. It goes into a truck and disappears into the bush. It's burnt. Batteries leak into the water systems. Plastic's burnt at low temperatures, often outside schools, which causes all sorts of medical problems. I mean, it's a bit of a disaster. And they wanted a solution. So what we were fortunate enough to be able to do is come up with that solution. We took some time out. We looked at what they wanted. We looked at how we could provide a service, and we were able to change from value addition to service provision, but using later on in the business model, funding ourselves the value addition on the materials, but actually taking control and providing a solution here. So just go through these pictures. This is a school that won an environmental award. This is one of our staff teaching a little bit about waste recycling. And this is a local recycling point, which I think is quite nice, made out of banana leaves and things like that. And this is an NGO we work with. So, what did we do to change? What were the key factors? So, yeah. I think one of the first things that was very key to us is that social impact led our decisions. We started out with a business model. We then ended up integrating ourselves into society and realizing that the problem was bigger than just plastic. It was a tip of the iceberg or a tip of the rubbish dump. Hotels, we found, were very worried about long-term sustainability. No one wants to come to an island full of rubbish. And so looking at that, we were able to think, well, there's got to be something else here. We were very flexible and willing to actually change our business model. We didn't have a set, rigid kind of plan. We were welcoming to change and getting new ideas. And I guess finally, and I think this is probably the most important point, it was the ability or we were given patient capital. People weren't expecting returns straight away. We could take our time to make decisions. They understood that business can't just turn around like that. So we didn't have to come back to them with money. They say, okay, this is what's happening. This is where we're going. We report to them. They say, okay, that's good. And they give us advice, but they're not waiting for their return. And I think, you know, that's absolutely vital because if we had to do that, if we had to bring back investment straight away, we wouldn't be here today. And where we are is we have about 120 hotels ready for full service collection. They're willing to pay about 1% of their annual turnover to us for that service. And we separate all the nasties and get rid of them properly and recycle about 90 to 95% of the waste that we collect from hotels. There, I think that'll be all right. Thank you.
Can you sit down and put on your little microphone, I think? Well, we have a few minutes here for questions. 3 to be exact, Ruth. Do we have any questions? There's a question way down in the corner over there.
Sign of a good presentation when there's no questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just need somebody to start the question.
Yeah, get the ball rolling.
Tim, congratulations on what you've done so far.
Thank you.
I had a burning question for you, but I think you may have answered it towards the end, which was how you coped and funded what was in part marketing exercises, but were actually behavioral change issues. And I think behavioral change issues belong to the public sector. And it's really none of your or anyone's business in the private sector to be going on this long road of behavioral change and getting people to understand what they should be doing. Yeah. But I think you mentioned something to do with patient capital, which I'm not sure if that's the answer, how you managed to get through that.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk around that point, it's interesting because the government isn't ready to implement behavioural change. It's not in a place where it wants to do that. And there's a lot of NGO work there, and they're doing things as well. But it was something we felt we had to do to actually develop the business model is we needed people to realise that waste was an issue, and we needed to market that idea and sell that to local businesses, the NGOs, and also if we have 120 hotels all signing up and supporting us, and we have X number of schools and people employed collecting plastics and other materials from rural environments, then the government's going to, you know, suddenly pay attention to us, and that's kind of where we got that from, if that helps at all.
What's your relationship with the guys who used to carry stuff away and burn it, or with the people who now have fewer bottles to use for homemade oils and juices and stuff?
The relationship with the people that take the waste away at the moment is one that we're working with in terms of contracting out some of the collections, in terms of sorting the waste, in terms of expertise of how to deal with that volume of waste without any hydraulic machinery, without waste compactors and things like that. In terms of removing the plastic bottles, we're not actually achieving that very well because everyone gets them before we get hold of them. What we have got is an interesting scheme where if we have some crushed bottles, if someone picks up some crushed bottles, they can bring 2 crushed bottles and they will get a fresh, empty bottle from a hotel, which they can then use for milk or whatever they want. So we're promoting reuse that way. So we're trying to integrate everyone that's included.
Hi, Lauren Thomas with Mozambiques. You mentioned twice that the government wasn't ready, to get behind your mission, which I think is really interesting because it's probably a very common problem to people operating in Africa. So I just wanted to know, how did you handle that? Did you carry on without them, in spite of them? Did you educate them, pacify them?
When I say they weren't ready, it's that someone was waiting for a brown envelope across the table. And I think that's something that we'll probably have to deal with at some time, and something we weren't willing to do. So we still include them. We are developing a stakeholder committee where we are trying to guide their legislation and guide their practices. We're working with the municipal that works in the urban areas to try and look at if they want to do a tendering process of the work so that they can actually use the money they get and but use our experience and our expertise to work, to employ us to do the work. And I mean, a lot of waste management around the world is based on public-private sector partnerships, and I don't see why it should be any different here. It's just slowly pushing them in that direction. And yeah, that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Sangha, your venture has been very successful, it appears, and the demand for green charcoal has been increasing. You're looking to developing a franchising model, I understand, and you have managed to enroll more and more actors along the supply chain, I understand. How have you adapted to that, and how have you managed to do that?
Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
This one.
Okay, this one, yes. My name is Moses Sanga. I come from Uganda. Uganda is next to Zambia, right? No, it's somewhere in East Africa next to Kenya. And I started a company called EcoFuel Africa. The idea came in 2010 when I met my kid sister carrying wood on a day she was supposed to be in school. And somehow I started thinking about possible alternatives to fuel wood in Africa. And at first, it wasn't clear what I really wanted to do, but after research, we actually realized that we could turn waste, things like farm waste and municipal waste, into clean cooking fuel and organic fertilizers. But there's a lot of waste in Uganda. And at first, we wanted to collect all of it and bring it to a central facility, process it, and sell it. But then we realized that this waste was in different villages that we couldn't easily reach. It became a problem. We didn't know what to do until we went back to the drawing table, and designed a new business model where we empower farmers at the household level to convert this waste into a product called char, which is basically a powder. We give them the technology that they use, which is a kiln, which is basically an old oil remodified drum that we lease to them. They don't have to pay any money up front, and they can turn their waste into char that we can then buy and bring to our central facility and turn into fuel that can be used in the same stove people already use. It burns longer, it burns cleaner, and it is much cheaper than the alternatives. And we've already created 2,500 farmers in Uganda with our kilns. And we've reached about 30,000 people, about 5,000 households. On average in Uganda, a household has about 6 people. But we are now expanding to new areas, and we've realized that we can actually not ship to every village in Uganda that needs our fuel. First of all, there are challenges in our country, like in all communities where you work. There's no infrastructure. Some villages have no roads virtually, so you can't easily ship things there. And the people have low purchasing power. So if you have to buy gas, hire a truck, and ship your charcoal 500 miles from your production center, chances are that by the time you reach the village, the charcoal will be too expensive that no one can afford it. So we are now going back to the drawing table, and we've developed a micro-franchising model. And what we hope to achieve with the micro-franchising model is to make every village energy sufficient, so that nothing is shipped out of the village or nothing has to be transported long distances to this village, which will eventually make our product very expensive. So we have already started piloting this micro-franchising model. And basically what we do is we pilot with a local CBO. It might be an NGO that works with empowering people, and we ask them to help identify local people that might be interested in owning a franchise. We train them, and with Sida's support, we've developed simple technology that doesn't use electricity, can be used by local people with limited skills, that we can then lease to the micro-franchisee in the village. And then we teach them how to replicate our business model in their local villages. And each micro-franchisee can directly employ about 3 people. They need about 100 farmers to supply them with the farm waste to use, the char that they use to make the briquettes that we sell. And then they need about 10 entrepreneurs. These are mainly women who sell the charcoal back to the communities. And they can bring clean cooking fuel to about 250 households locally. So basically, that's where the future lies for us. And we are very excited about the micro-franchising model. The few micro-franchisees we've already created are already progressing well. And it takes about 6 months for them to pay off our technology and start expanding without having our loans. So basically, that's what we do, and that's what we are trying to achieve. Thank you very much.
Some questions? That's quite a scale, Mr. Sanga. That's, I mean, how it seems that it has increased so exponentially.
Yes.
How have you adapted your staff, your organization to this expansion?
Well, it has been a learning process for all of us. So the good thing is we involve the local communities, and most of our staff are local people, so they understand the problems locally. So when something fails, we all can see that it doesn't work. So our customers also understand it. And so we normally have community meetings with our stakeholders, and all the staff attend. And then we brainstorm possible solutions together, yes.
How many people do you have on your payroll?
20. 20. Yes. But those are the direct employees. We have many other people. We have 260 women who sell for us. We have 2,500 farmers who supply us with the raw materials. But those are independent business people. We only pay them for what they produce. We don't pay them a salary. Yes.
This expansion has happened organically, or have you made a push or a very clear campaign to expand?
It has been more organic. Like people normally come to us when one farmer in the village has a kiln. Neighbors start coming to us after they've seen.
Farmer to farmer.
Yeah, so it's mainly, we actually don't do any marketing, no organized marketing. It's mainly word of mouth. One household adapts it and tells the neighbor tells the other neighbor, and that's how it spreads, really.
Tim, you had a question?
Yeah. How? Oh, I'll lean over. I've two questions, really. The first is, have you had any trouble with people that are producing charcoal from firewood? And how have you managed that situation if you have had any problems?
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Yes, charcoal from firewood is our competition. So, of course, people who make it are not happy with us. But it's even an illegal business, so it's not like they are supported by government. Uganda has already lost 70% of its forests, so everyone clearly knows that this is a problem. The government just doesn't know what to do next, but they know that something has to be done, so we at least have the support of the government. So it's easy to ignore them. But because our briquettes are much cheaper, a kilo of charcoal from wood in Uganda costs about 1,500, and our briquettes cost about 700 shillings. So it's much cheaper. So for customers, it's a question of what can I afford most? What saves me money? Does it cook? Can it put food on my table? That's what they care about most, and that's our selling point. People in my country don't understand that when you cut down a tree, that can affect the environment. They know God is in charge of when it rains. So what they care about most is, can I afford it? Does it really work? And because we provide that, we've been okay. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now there's a lot of questions.
Can I ask my second question very quickly? Very quickly. After you've sold the franchise to a village, is there any return after they've paid off their loan for you?
Yes. So yes, thank you, Tim. That's a good question. Once the micro-franchisee has paid off the loan, yes, we remain engaged. So we charge them a royalty fee, and that takes care of the continuous mentoring. We also help them with technology. We allow them to use our brand, and we continue supporting them. So we stay, it's a lifetime marriage. Once we, there's no divorce until as long as the business survives, yes.
My question is on the kiln. Here in Zambia, we actually face similar challenges. We have a lot of deforestation taking place. And one of the things that people have been looking at is having the briquettes in the local communities. But I would like to understand how you're using your simple technology and how affordable it is. Because the question that these people ask is, why should I go for this briquette? Because the technology that's taking place right now here is quite expensive, and people end up buying, they can't afford the briquette. So I'd like to understand the simple technology and how, especially the behavior change, how people have shifted from using charcoal in their local communities to appreciating the eco fuel that they're using. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. Yes, like I was saying earlier, the key to success in this kind of market is making it affordable, keeping the cost down. So in our case, we use simple kilns. They are made out of old oil drums that are easily affordable and can easily be found. We remodify those drums. They can be carried on a bicycle, so like 3 people can share the same kiln. Our kilns cost about 150,000 Uganda shillings. That's about $70, $75. And the farmer doesn't have to have money up front. We just give them the kiln, and once they start converting their waste into a product called char that we buy, we can pay them 50% of whatever they supply until the kiln is paid off. From our experience, this takes about 3 to 6 months. Some really lazy farmers take about 12 months, but those are outliers. But really, the key for us, we've really kept our technology very low cost, very tailor-made to our communities, because we know if it's more than that, no one can afford it. And that's how we've managed to succeed in this market. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Moses, thank you very much. And that was a very good, innovative business model that you have. I just wanted to find out, going back to the drawing table, where you started from was basically looking at your sister who was out of school. You've managed to involve the community in a very, basically very good way. What impact has this had on education, especially the girl child? Going back to the original concept.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. So actually education was the start of everything. I was worried that my sister was going to miss education. And I value education a lot because I wouldn't be here if I didn't go to school. And education is a basic human right. Everyone should really go to school. So what impact have we had? We've had impact on different levels. First of all, we have created a network of entrepreneurs that earn money from our business. And we have a clear eligibility criteria for selecting our women who sell for us. They must be mothers. We have 260 retailers, and only one of them is a man. Actually, this guy died a few weeks ago. So we no longer, her daughter took over the business. So all of our retailers now are women. But to qualify, you have to be a mother. And we prefer mothers who have at least one daughter of school-going age. And we give preference to single mothers, widows, and teenage mothers, people who are really struggling to feed their families, send their children to school. And we've seen our mothers earn about 300,000 Uganda shillings a month. That's about $152. In Uganda, that is middle-class income. Actually, it's almost it's more than what a primary school teacher earns. So with that income, our mothers can, our retailers can take their daughters to school, they can put food on the table, and we also have a network of farmers that can earn up to $30 a month if selling char to us, and that's about 75,000 Uganda shillings. And for a farmer, who has, most of these are subsistence farmers that really don't have any other source of income. So this augments their income many, many times. And with this money, they can send, most of these communities have subsidized education. So the biggest problem is parents have no money to buy books, to give their children lunch, there's some money they contribute called PTA, for increasing the money that teachers get paid. So we give parents this ability to provide books to their children, to provide them with regular lunch, and that makes it much easier for these kids to stay in school and learn while in school. So that has been our contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses. We have one last question.
Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned that you are getting support from the government. You didn't specify. Is it in terms of the policy framework that provides this kind of support to you, or are you getting government grants to support your innovation? I say this because we have a situation like in Zambia where innovations in forestry management cannot operate well because we are working within the framework of an act that is more commandist, and yet the thinking around the innovators is more participatory.
Thank you. That's a great question. Yes, we've got a lot of support from the government. They gave us a grant of $5,000 that was helpful earlier enough. And actually, one of a senior government advisors to the president in charge of science and technology sits on our board. So we put him on our board for strategic reasons. Because in Africa, once the government does not really support you, it's hard to really do business. And we currently, the government is planning to give us some land in an industrial park closer to Kampala. So we've been operating mainly out of Kampala. And because land is very expensive in Kampala, which is the capital city of Uganda, we were really finding it hard to expand there. But the government, we put in our application, which was accepted, and now a few bureaucratic procedures are still yet to be finalized, and soon they will give us land, and that will dramatically improve our capacity and increase our turnover. Yes, so thank you.
One last question.
Okay, my question I think is just based on the issue of waste. We have just heard that you are talking about waste in the rural areas. Maybe it's better for you to qualify what you mean by waste, because when we talk of rural areas, actually the waste itself is a bit more negligible as compared to towns like his project which he's doing in Zanzibar. There is more waste in towns as compared to rural areas. Now I want to know which type of this waste which can really sustain the economies of the rural people. From maybe January to December, they are just recycling this waste and be able to supply to your company. What type of waste is this?
Great, thank you. That's a good question. So we can use all sorts of waste. If every organic waste, if you harvest your beans and the leafy materials that you normally throw away, you can turn that into char. But currently we work mainly in areas that have commercial kind of, like for example, we are in one town that it's known as a sugarcane town. So there's a sugarcane factory that has many outgrowers that have 1 acre, 2 acres that make sugarcane and can then take it to the sugarcane factory. And they have a lot of waste that remains. But in some areas, we only have farmers who, I have my garden, I have my bananas, I have my beans, and after I harvest, I have some leftovers that I can turn into char that we can buy. So basically, even if you slash your compound, you can turn that grass actually into. So everything that is organic can be turned into char. And in the towns, we can use all sorts of organic municipal waste. We can use charcoal dust. We can recycle charcoal dust. We can use sawdust from the mills. We can use coffee husks from coffee factories. So all sorts of waste can be really recycled into briquettes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Moses. That was very interesting. I guess we're going to move from waste now to energy. And we will ask Samir to come up here and tell us a little bit about how his business model or a distribution model that worked quite well in Eastern Africa was a little more difficult to implement in India. Please, welcome.
I don't have a presentation, so I'm just going to talk off the cuff here. Yeah, so the model, by the way, thank you very much to the IMP for inviting us here. First time in Zambia, so I'm very excited to be here. The successful model in East Africa that we then took to India, I have to put successful in quotes because that model was business model 1.0 for us in East Africa. We're now at business model 3.0 in East Africa. So I can talk a bit about how we went from 1.0 to 3.0 in East Africa, but for the purposes of this particular presentation, I'm just going to talk about how we went from East Africa to India with IAP's support. So before I get there, let me talk a bit about what we were doing in East Africa. In 2008, we were funded by the World Bank Lighting Africa initiative, specifically to come up with an innovative solution to this whole issue of energy poverty, lighting poverty, the fact that 2 billion people in the world do not have access to electricity, 700 million people in sub-Saharan Africa alone. So where we started was in rural Rwanda. That was the first country of operation for us. We wanted to better understand what the specific energy needs were for the so-called base of pyramid population. In our case, we were very much focused on the $1 to $1.50 a day household income segment. 80% of Rwanda is less than $1.25 a day. So, very, very poor households. We wanted to understand what their energy needs were in particular, and particularly on the lighting side, because we were funded by the Lighting Africa team. So clearly, kerosene is what people use. Kerosene is a $17 billion a year market in Africa alone, according to the World Bank. We wanted to understand if kerosene is so expensive, it's environmentally unfriendly, it's unsafe, it's unhealthy. Why do households continue to buy it? And we found in rural Rwanda that people would spend upwards of 25% of their income, $1 a week in many cases, $2 a week on kerosene. So we wanted to understand the design characteristics of kerosene that made it such a popular product for the most extreme people in the world to consume. And what we walked away with was 4 observations. This is before we had designed anything, by the way. We found that kerosene was portable, it was reliable. You know, if you had kerosene and you lit it, you would get light. If it could be purchased in increments, so you could buy as little or as much kerosene as you can afford, and clearly populations that are earning income erratically, you know, that makes a lot of economic sense. And then the last observation was that kerosene light was mainly used for tasks, cooking, studying, attending to their baby, etc. So we thought if we could design a product that satisfied all of these lighting, all of these characteristics, could that not be a very easy product for people to switch to? And so that's when we designed this portable LED light. You know, it's very small, it can be used as a headlight or hung up. It's mainly a task light just to get the job done, but then we thought if we could have people purchase one for a very low cost and then purchase others as they, you know, progressed and have them connect together, almost like Lego lights, they could light up larger areas as and when they needed to do that. So, you know, you see that there's no charging mechanism on this. You know, what we did is we looked around to see what the charging options were. Solar was clearly an option. We found that solar for this particular segment of the market was still too expensive a proposition, and was very inefficient. In fact, in that it takes a very long time to charge anything with a solar panel. So we looked around the community there in Rwanda to say, well, what is one energy source here that's untapped that we could harness? And human energy came to mind. So we thought if we could convert the human energy in these communities into usable electricity to power lights, mobile phones, radios, very low power devices, would that not be a game-changing solution? So we developed this device. It's on page 15 of the annual report. There's an image of one there. But that device is a pedal generator. It can recharge 5 of these lights in 20 minutes, each light giving about a week of light to a rural household. So because of that turnover, because you could recharge these lights so quickly, we thought, well, if we put this generator into the hands of an entrepreneur or a micro-franchisee, you know, could that not serve as a lucrative recharging business? And so we started with, you know, 10 initially. We scaled up to 70. We were working with a microfinance bank in East Africa, in Rwanda and Kenya at that point, to basically provide the financing for the generator and 100 of these lights. So the entrepreneur would sell these lights for about $6 US, and then the lights would come back on a weekly basis for recharging. It would take 20 minutes to recharge 5. That means the entrepreneurs were earning, well, they would charge about 20 US cents per recharge. So that's about $1 every 20 minutes compared to the $1 a day before. So huge value proposition for the entrepreneur. Customers were spending 20 cents a week versus $1 or $2 a week. So huge value proposition for them. It was working brilliantly. This is business model 1.0, which we have found is not scalable, actually, now. So then we took that and we took it to India, because India represents 25% of the world's off-grid market, 400 million people. And we thought, well, do we want to work in 52 different African countries with this model and have to tweak it for every country, or do we want to focus on just one country where there's a massive problem and try and make it work there? So that's when we went to the IAP, and they supported us to try and replicate what we're doing in Africa in rural India. And we found a lot of hurdles. One in particular was this stigma that, against just using human power or peddling. Our colleague at the back talked about dignity. There were a lot of people, a lot of microfinance banks that we talked to that actually thought it was undignified to be sitting in your home and peddling for, you know, and creating power. This is not a stigma that we found in rural Africa, but it was a stigma that we found in India. We ultimately found a microfinance bank that was very interested. It was a bank called Basics, a national bank, had 2 million clients. We wanted to work with one particular bank that would help us scale if this pilot was going to work. So we put all our eggs in the Basics basket, which was a big mistake. Because I don't know if you guys heard, but in 2011 or so, there was this huge crisis, financial crisis in the microfinance space in India. During Q&A, if you want to know, or afterwards, I can talk a bit more about it. But basically, that bank went from 2 million clients to 200,000 clients in the span of just half a year to a year. And clearly then, our initiative was marginalized at that point. right? So that was a huge blow to us. We had to then start looking for a new partner, which we found very difficult. The other issue that we found in India was just the kerosene subsidies that exist, right? So kerosene costs about 10 rupees a liter. 10 rupees is about 20 US cents. 1 liter would last about a week, particularly for the poorest of the poor who are really economizing and would stretch 1 liter of kerosene for an entire week. And so that 20 cents for a liter of kerosene was the equivalent of our 20 cents for clean LED lighting. So the switching cost was not that straightforward to the rural consumer. So the value proposition for the consumer was not as strong as it was in East Africa. How much time do I have? I'll wrap it up. Okay. The other thing, business model 3.0 relies on mobile money. So what we've done is we've mobile money enabled the entire generator platform, whereby entrepreneurs have to prepay now, similar to a lot of the pay-as-you-go models, which I think our colleague from d.light is going to talk about, where entrepreneurs have to prepay for credits, just like you have to prepay for talk time or scratch cards. So using the M-Pesa network in Kenya and mobile money network, MTN Money Network in Uganda and Rwanda, they have to buy credits from us. We send back an SMS with a 20-digit code that they enter into the generator. The generator would unlock for whatever number of credits they've purchased. So that keeps it interesting for us as a for-profit social enterprise where we're getting recurring revenue from all the generators in the field. In India, mobile money is very nascent and hadn't reached the markets where we were working. So that was another reason why our model couldn't actually evolve in India as it did in East Africa. And I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Samir. My first question is, where are you now?
So in East Africa, we have 1,200 of these micro-entrepreneurs set up across Uganda, and we should talk later, actually. Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, and we've got about 70,000 lights distributed, which is really a drop in the bucket. Yeah. And one of the reasons that one of the impediments that we're finding is that the $6 price point for the rural consumer is still too expensive. Initially, when we were surveying households, they would often say $6 is too pricey, and we ignored it because we thought, well, of course they're going to say that. And we brought in a marketing consultant, someone that had worked for Celtel, which is now Airtel in Africa. She was the group marketing officer, so she joined us as our CMO. And her big push was that, in the telecom space, it was all about creating this value proposition in the minds of the consumers that the cell phone is actually worth $10, $20, $30. And so she said, we have to basically have a marketing push that gets people to believe that this is worth $6 up front. So we spent a lot of the money that we raised, a lot of the money on just marketing, road shows, radio ads, etc. And we've only sold 70,000. So about 6 months ago, I asked my team, okay, what is the price point at which these just fly off the shelf? If $6 is too high, what is the price point? So either the customers don't like the product, one, or they find it legitimately too expensive. We surveyed about 1,000 households over the course of 3 months, and 98% of the people are satisfied with it. So it came down to price. The price point that we are now selling at is $2 each unit. So there's this loss that happens between the $2 and the $6 that it costs. So who funds that is the question. So that's business model 3.0 for us at the moment, where we're setting up an investment fund which would essentially allow individuals from abroad, institutional investors, to come in and actually finance one of our entrepreneurs and then earn this recurring revenue that they could receive from the recharging that each of the entrepreneurs generates. So we're finding that could return about a 10% IRR to investors. So that's business model 3.0 for us, because as we've been going from one model to another, initially we looked for microfinance banks to fund it. That was business model 1.0. Even in East Africa, we found that microfinance banks were risk averse and very operationally inefficient. So we said, let's finance it ourselves. That was business model 2.0. That's not scalable. And now we're looking for external finance, but trying to create it into an investable vehicle. Sorry, that was way over, it was much more than we asked for.
Very interesting. Do we have any questions from the floor? There's a question down there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Duncan Drine from IDE. Interested what you say about pedal power. People don't like it in India. That's the home of the treadle pump, which is a basic irrigation tool. And I find it incredible that you were told that people didn't want to pump, didn't want to pedal to generate the electricity. Did you delve any deeper in that, or did you just sort of take the word of people for it?
No, I think what we found is that there's this tremendous push towards solar in India. And the government, and that, I'm not sure if you have experience from India as well, but the government is really supporting initiatives that have solar at the heart. And in fact, that was another thing that we learned from the IAP program, is that if we want to participate in India continuously, we also have to play the solar game. And so we've come out with this particular panel that snaps into the light, and now you can be solar charged. And we've also got a bunch of other solar options that are coming to the market very soon as well. But yeah, it's an opinion that is shared by, I would say, the people that do not understand the physical hardship that generally the extreme poor go through just to earn $1 in a day. So I'm hoping it's just a small segment of the whole market that believes that.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. And we will carry on. Yes?
Actually, I do have a question.
Please, Kate, go ahead.
Push the red button, please.
Hopefully everyone else will benefit.
Try again. Can you push the button so it lights up? It doesn't work?
It's just turning.
Borrow Samir's then, or the other one. Borrow Samir's.
I was just wondering about, you have two kind of streams, right? You have the credit and recharging, and you have the light selling. And it sounds like selling the lights has been a challenge, but are your entrepreneurs making money from the recharging, and how are their businesses doing?
Yeah. So our entrepreneurs typically have about 200 or so customers, and those 200 or so customers are coming back on a weekly basis. We do revenue sharing basically with them, where we take 50% of the income, and they keep 50% of the income. And so they're earning, like as I said, in 20 minutes about 50 cents now, which if they've got enough lights in the marketplace, is quite a lucrative income for them.
Thank you very much, Samir. Kate? Now it's working, yes. You can come up here and talk. This one is working. It'd be very interesting to hear. You're a company that works in many countries. Your products and services have been around for a while. What is particularly interesting is how your products and services have evolved and adapted over the years, and to what extent you've had to change your business model or your products during this period. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. Thank you to IAP. My name is Kate Montgomery. I'm the Director of Global Partnerships with d.light. I've been with them for about 2 years now, and I mostly do partnerships with the public sector, donors, foundations. But what I'll talk to you today is kind of how our business has evolved over the years. Just so you know kind of where we stand right now, we're at about over 300,000 units a month. We started in 2008, so we've kind of just in the last year really hit this kind of bit of a hockey stick, which we're really excited about. But it took a while. We now have 4 products selling, and the 4th one is what I'll kind of be highlighting today. We're in about 10,000 retail outlets globally, over 45 countries globally, over 200 employees, and that's kind of ramping up just this year really quickly. And we've just kind of, by the end of October, hit about 25 million lives empowered globally, which is really exciting for us. But to talk about kind of how our business model has changed, it's really been interesting. Like you say, kind of product at the beginning was God. Product was everything to us. If we were kind of convinced that if we can make the best possible product at the best price and make it a good deal against kerosene, like you said, they were just going to fly off the shelf, and we would just kind of sell container after container. It wouldn't be a big deal. What we really learned pretty quickly was that distribution and marketing was the key, and that's because we all know our customers. They're incredibly risk adverse. They're not first adopters. They don't know this new technology. It's an unknown brand. They don't know us. They don't trust us. And so there's this huge need to kind of engage with the customers, to demonstrate, to educate, to trial, to get the product out there so people could understand what the technology is and why it will benefit their lives. And so kind of this became a huge shift. We kind of took all of our investment that was in product design and marketing and or manufacturing and operations, and we shifted it and we invested it in sales and marketing throughout the globe. Most of our money right now has been in marketing, actually. And what we found was, had we invested kind of earlier in marketing, we probably would have seen this kind of hockey stick much earlier, but it took us years. And what you're seeing now is we had, our first product. It took years to get traction in the market. We've had 2 products since then, same thing, almost, a year or 2 to kind of get in there. The most recent one, the S2, which I can show you in the expo, has really started to really take off. It's kind of our lowest price, highest quality, really simple design product. And now, and that's been that shift, right? And what we also, and then kind of what IAP helped us invest in has been really interesting because it's a kind of microcosm of this learning cycle that we've been under. So what it meant was that once we did that huge switch to sales and marketing, we kind of lost all our capacity in product development, right? Which 2-3 years in, you're finally selling your products, but everyone's looking for the next big thing, and so are we, and so are our customers. And they're saying, okay, portable is great, but what's next? What are you going to give us now? We need more power. We need more light. And so that's really what IAP's helped us invest in, and that's a solar home system. Because price is such an important thing, we combined with another partner called Mkopa, and they do credit. They do mobile money payment, pay as you go. So it was our product, our technology, really going to the communities and understanding what do they need. They need more light. They need more energy. They need to charge their cell phones. They need potentially radio and some other things. And then coming with a partner like Mkopa that said, we're going to use mobile money to allow people to pay over time. And that's really been game-changing for us, and that's really what the IAP money has supported us to do. And now we're selling in Uganda with this new kind of advanced product. I'll show it to you again at the expo. And it's been really exciting. So it's been a microcosm where the grant funding has helped us to reinvigorate our product design and really take this market from this product from a prototype into an actual, ready for sale production unit. And then it's also allowed us to partner with Mkopa in a new country in Uganda, learn a lot about the pay-as-you-go, and now we kind of launched sales in Uganda in May. We now have about 400 to 450 customers in Uganda, and they're kind of doubling each month, which is really exciting for us. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the key factors that allowed us to kind of some of the things that allowed us to make this change, right? Some of it's just responding to our customers and being kind of market ready and adept, but other it was some key pivot points that allowed us to kind of make this change and adapt. And one of them is really changing from being a founder-led company to a CEO-led company. And this happened right around when I was joining, so about 2010, where our founders, these brilliant young entrepreneurs, Sam Goldman and Ned Tozin, hired a CEO to kind of come in above them. And with the CEO, Don Tice, they've brought in a whole executive team. And that's been really exciting for us. So it's just kind of upped our capability significantly with global superstars, kind of a lot coming from corporate, kind of a whole mix of backgrounds, enabling us to really kind of take the business to the next level with that level of experience. So that's been really incredible. The other one was really just the quality of people, and that's something about just kind of growing and succeeding in the way that we have. We've been able to attract a lot of top talent, and being really flexible about roles and where people sit and kind of who they are has been really important to us. So we kind of have everything from entrepreneurs, engineers, FMCG sales, so kind of guys that were doing small sachets of shampoo or Nestle or Coca-Cola are now selling our products, and marketing execs from some of the best marketing companies in the world, as well as people like me who come from the more humanitarian or NGO or public space. So it's been a nice combo. And then the last one is kind of the ability to dream big. As our founder says, Ned says, it takes as much energy to raise about $500,000 as it takes to raise $5 million. So why don't you just raise $5 million? Shoot for the stars. When you do that, you kind of attract the most amazing people. You kind of push everyone, and then all the investors and all the donors, they want to be kind of with you, and that's really exciting as well. And as they'd say, kind of through dreaming it, we were able to achieve it. And just to show you quickly, this is the product that we launched on the market in Uganda with IAP support. You can see more of it. I can demo it for you in the exhibition hall, but we appreciate the support. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kate. We have a few minutes for questions. I have one question, and it's basically, how much do you involve your customers and consumers in product development?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So our whole company, as I said, kind of was founded on this idea of human-centered design. So really, the whole impetus of the company came from our founder, Sam Goldman, who was in the Peace Corps in Benin. And he was living in a hut with his kind of community, and one of his neighbor's child was horrifically burned in a kerosene fire, had to kind of recover on a mat for 6 months, and almost died. And he kind of, at that moment, decided there has to be a better solution. So he stayed for 4 years in Benin, and kind of living and working with these communities, he really understood what they wanted. He went back to Stanford and really got involved with this human-centered design movement. So I'm sure you know IDEO and some of these other big players that really rely on understanding the customer's needs, desires, wants, limitations, barriers, everything to design their product. And that's something that's kind of in everything we do, it's really important, and that's still how we design our products.
Do all your products work everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I'm trying to think if I've never had that one exactly. Yeah, they do. As long as there's sun. Anywhere there's sun, and that's most of the world, they do work. We also even have a backup DC charger if you have that opportunity, so that even's easier. So even if you're in the Scandinavia, I guess, and it's dark all the time, if you have a Nokia charger, you can still make d.lights work. I think the only limitation more is on the pay-as-you-go that M-Copa started. And so that's really only where there's mobile money so far, and that's just the financing aspect. The product would still work anywhere where there's sun, but as long as there's a mobile platform, that's how you'd have to pay off over time.
Thank you. We have a question.
How did you make sure that the CEO-led company had the same values as the founders had?
That's a great question. We actually do a lot of thinking about this because there's kind of this, there's this tension where we want to grow and we want to include all these insights and these skill sets, but we don't want to turn into a Unilever, even though we have a lot of Unilever people. And so that's been kind of a transition for us. And one way we've been able to do that has really been around kind of how much our founders are still involved. I mean, obviously, one's still a president. He does a whole bunch of stuff, obviously. Our other one, he's head of all the product innovation. They still really have a huge voice, and we kind of talk a lot about how the values that they gave us are still so important. First of all, they embody them, and they're really around kind of innovation, trial and error, integrity, transparency, openness. These are all things that they kind of embody themselves, and we've really acknowledged them and set them as our values. And now, not only are they kind of one of the big reasons why people join our company, so they're kind of a lot of them are trying to get away from some of the political, massive bureaucracies that they see in these other parts of the industry, and they're attracted to come to us for our values. So I think there's this there's a push and pull there. There's a huge importance to keep that because it's also a selling point and it's why people come, but it's also what makes people stay and it makes people really care about being part of the company. So it's something that we're constantly kind of rechecking and making sure that we don't get too far from that because it's so crucial to our DNA and why people want to work with us.
I'm Barnabas from ILO. We currently pioneering youth employment project and entrepreneurship. I'm interested, you talked about distribution and marketing approaches within your success of your business model. I would want to know how is it that you're engaging young people, young entrepreneurs in your business model, and do you have any training programs to that effect in terms for them to be able to adapt new technology? And how are you doing that in terms of ensuring that they are able to set up their own business models within the local communities that you're working with?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So generally, most of our distribution happens through distribution partners on the ground. And these people could be anything from a Total, so oil and gas, to a Sunny Money or a SolarAid. Some of you might have heard of them. They do a lot of marketing through schools. And so there's a huge, I'd say, range of how these organizations work and how they get kind of last mile distribution. It's a real range. So even Total has a micro-entrepreneur program where they're hiring local people to sell their products. Some of them are definitely youth. But I'd say there isn't necessarily a strategic or kind of, principle or kind of regulation, I don't know, protocol that we use to include youth. That's actually something that I've been really working on in my work while working with NGOs because it's a huge kind of win-win for both of us. So we have a couple of pilots going with some groups like International Rescue Committee, Mercy Corps, and others to get youth entrepreneurs involved. And so we kind of have a micro-entrepreneurship business in a box kind of model that we're working with that we've tried out in different places where people can kind of take, we give them a startup kit, they have some demo units, they can then source from a local distributor, they get some training, and then they can sell to their communities. And it's really interesting, we're trying this in kind of everywhere from India to Wajir, Kenya, in Nairobi, and it's really had, very, very varying different recipes for success. In Wajir, for example, it's really taking off. The kind of Somali communities there are doing really, really well, and the entrepreneurs are just flourishing. In other places, they faced other challenges. It's not the easiest product to sell. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's a lot of trust. So I think we're just still really piloting and learning how to get more youth involved. Sorry.
It's a real chicken and egg process about building up your team in order to scale the business and scaling the business to be able to fund this amazing team with lots of executives. How did you grow? Was it organic? And how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, it is a bit of a chicken and egg. I think, I'm not probably the best person to talk about this for the organization, but I think we've been really lucky with some really amazing investors, including a Midyar, Acumen, some donors like IAP and others that have really seen that they want us to succeed. They want us to scale. And I think they recognize that, based on our track record so far, that there is huge potential. And so with them being able to see the potential alongside of us has been, I think, allowed them to kind of invest the upfront capital that we needed and then show the dividends. And I have to say it's proving to pay off for everyone. So
okay, last question.
Yeah.
Shurat, Stockholm from Sweden.
Speak louder, please.
What is the main competitive advantage of your business model and products? Because as I know, on the market, there are many similar projects. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, we'd say kind of design, affordability, our brand, and kind of our distribution channels. I think one thing that we do differently than others is we're incredibly flexible. We don't have kind of one model that we have to make work in each place we go. We're really responsive to the different customers and our different distribution strategies. And I think that allows us to be really responsive to the local context, and we're working with all of our partners to help them figure out what makes most sense in their markets. We're not coming from a top down to say this is what's going to work and this is how you have to do it. And I think with that type of exchange, it's really about being customer driven not just at the consumer level but at the customer level as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the panelists very much, but there will be opportunities to engage with them during the day. Thank you.
Yes, we're going to now have a coffee break for about 25 minutes. And while you are enjoying coffees and talking to each other, talking to the entrepreneurs, you can also look at the exhibition, which is right outside in the next room. And remember that there is plenty of time to see the exhibition also at the other breaks. So it will be a bit crowded in there, I guess. While you are having your coffees, please also think about what session you want to go to next. We will have 2 tracks that are going to talk about understanding and reaching BOP in a bit more detail. The first track that will be here is about market intelligence, where you will hear from Text to Change, CropServe, Mozambiques, and Rent to Own. That will be moderated by Cecilia Vaverka. And in the other room, which is if you go just across the exhibition hall, on the other side of the exhibition hall, you have the Luangwe room, and in there you will hear about marketing, branding, and promotions at the BOP. And in that session, we have Synergy, Macket, Lafarge, and Megas. It's also a combination of IAP grantees and from our sister organization, Business Innovation Facility, and that session will be moderated by Suzanne Dagseven as well. Please try to be seated here 11:10. Since we're going live, we're streaming live, we have an audience, we don't want to keep them waiting in front of their computers. Thank you very much.